Happy Friday, everyone. We made it to the end of another great week. This is Zoo to You Virtual Safari. I'm Carly, and if you can recognize where I am, then you probably know who we're talking about today. But if you can't, I am in Toyota Elephant Passage. But it's not the elephants we're featuring today, it's our Clouded Leopard. We're wrapping up Endangered Species Week, talking about this elusive, beautiful, wonderful cat and how you can make a difference to make sure that it exists and stays around for generations to come. So to help me do that is going to be our keeper, Matt, and we're going to talk to him and meet a couple of our Clouded Leopards. So drop your questions for Matt about the species, the cat, anything you want to know in the comment section. So hi to Ashley, she watches every day. Hi Josh, let's get started. All right, hi Matt.
Hi everyone, how's everyone doing? It's so good to be here with all of you, to be here on our last day for Endangered Species Week, and to highlight probably one of the coolest, at least in my opinion, one of the coolest animals are Clouded Leopards. So I want to talk a little bit about Clouded Leopards, introduce you to this man right here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about kind of why they're vulnerable right now, and then some really great strategies that all of you can do, some easy things you can do to help. So this right here is Taji. Taji is a 8-year-old Clouded Leopard, and he has lived at the Denver Zoo since 2011. So he moved here when he was only about 6 months old, and he moved here with his mate Lisu. So Taji is full grown. Like I said, he is 8 years old right now, and he weighs just about 45 pounds. For a male Clouded Leopard, that's pretty much right where you want them to be. Usually they're anywhere from about 45 to 50 pounds. The females are actually a lot smaller. So females are typically right around 25 to 30 pounds. So almost half the size of the males. Clouded leopards are really unique. So these animals, they are native to Southeast Asia. So they are found in places like Nepal, China, down into Indonesia. What's really cool is they're found in mostly tropical rainforest areas, but they're also found at in the foothills of the Himalayas. So you might find Taji or his counterpart out in like Nepal up to 9,000 feet in elevation up in countries like Nepal in the wild. So really, really fascinating. But they live mostly in the trees. They live mostly in the forested areas where there's lots of thick vegetation where they can hide, and they're very, very secretive. They're very quiet, so they want to avoid large other cats like leopards or tigers, but they also want to be very quiet and sneaky for when they're trying to catch their food.
And a lot of people are commenting, they're regulars to Denver Zoo. They say they can be so hard to find in this habitat.
They can. It's so hard because we get that question a lot. Oh, where are the Clouded Leopards? We can't see them. And they are, most of the time, they are out there. They just take a little bit more time and investment to find them. And it's really hard because we want people to see them and we want people to know that they're there, but you just have to look a little bit harder. So next time you're here, take a little bit of extra time when you're at the Clouded Leopard exhibit because it is absolutely worth it.
They are so beautiful. So Matt's going to do some feeding.
So yeah, we're going to give Taji some treats right now. You can see he's getting really excited. So this is actually just diluted evaporated milk, so it's something that's a really great treat for him. It's low calorie, so it's just something that he really enjoys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get him to stand so you can get a really good look at his whole body. Can you stand up? Good job, buddy. So one of the things that's really important, you can see they have those really, really big paws. So these animals, they're arboreal, and that just basically means they spend a lot of time up in the trees. So they have these really big paws to help them. Come down here. Good. They have these really big paws to help them really navigate through that. So that's really important for balance. It's important for hunting and for navigating those trees.
A lot of people are also noticing that Taji has a very long tail.
He does. That's a great observation. So I'm going to give him a little ice treat right now. Maybe. Let's see if we can get it in there. There we go. So this is just a bloodsicle. So yeah, that's a great observation. So Clouded leopards, from their nose to the base of their tail, not so much, they're about 2 to 3 feet. Their tail is that equal to the length. So their tail can be up to 3 feet long. So that tail is really, really important for when they're moving through the trees. So that tail, kind of like if you were on a balance beam and you put your arms out, that tail helps them with balance when they're moving really quickly through the trees or really quickly through the forest when they're trying to catch their food. So that's a great observation.
Yeah, a lot of great questions coming in. Hi, Abby. Hi, Cassidy. Xander is watching. I know he loves the predators and the cats. Yes, Everett, Taji can be hard to find. Ashley's wondering how big their teeth are, and I just learned something by looking at one of our signs over there.
Yeah, that is a great question, Ashley. So one of the really unique things, let me give him a little bit more milk, and we'll see if you can get a really close-up shot of those teeth. So we're going to see, you see right there, so those canines are really, really big. So what's really, really, really special to Clouded Leopards is that they actually have the largest canines in proportion to their skull size than any other wild cat. So for how big his head is, those teeth are so big in there compared to like a lion's teeth would be. So even though his teeth are technically smaller than a lion's, compared to the size of his skull, the ratio is actually larger. So really, really unique feature about these animals, and it's a really useful tool for them when they're hunting.
He looks like he's got little slippers on that are just a little too big for his feet.
Yeah, exactly. He
They're
has
so
those really
cute.
those big feet.
Hi to Ivy, Lily, and Janae. We have so many people watching. Luke is wondering how they became kind of vulnerable or endangered and what's their conservation status.
That is a great question, Luke, and perfect segue. So two of the biggest threats to clouded leopards are poaching. So people hunt them illegally for different parts of their body to use in traditional medicine or food, and also for their pelt. But one of the biggest things, and one of the things I really wanted to talk about today, is habitat loss, specifically palm oil farming. So one of the things that is happening to clouded leopards, so as you remember, they're found down into parts of Indonesia, so Sumatra and Borneo. And what's happening is in a lot of those places, there are unsustainable farming practices with palm oil. So what happens is farms basically clear large sections of forests, and they either burn them or cut them down, and that basically wipes out habitat for animals like Taji or animals like orangs or orangutans. So it's really, really tough because this practice with unsustainable palm oil actually impacts so many different animals. It's not just clouded leopards, it's not just orangutans, it is all the animals that live in those forests in Southeast Asia and all the plants as well. So what happens here is what we want to talk about is palm oil in itself is not inherently bad or inherently evil. It's the way that we produce it. So if one of the things that we talked about is palm oil is actually really important. It's found in over 50% of our processed foods. So different things that you find in the grocery store like cookies or crackers or shampoo or makeup. Palm oil is in a lot of things when you really stop and look at ingredient lists. And it's important. One of the reasons it's in so many is it extends the shelf life of a lot of foods. And it also is really low in trans fats, which is really important. So the part of it that we need to do is not get rid of palm oil, because palm oil actually has some really important uses. But what we want to do and what we're asking people to do is to really look at supporting sustainable palm oil practices. So looking for companies that have signed on to organizations like the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil, and looking to make sure that they are being thoughtful in what they're doing. So one of the things that what happens is if people are not practicing really good strategies with palm oil, what they're doing is they're going in, they're clearing forests for the lumber, they're burning it down. Whereas if you have really sustainable practices, they're going to be more thoughtful in how they're doing that. And they're going to make sure that they're doing it in a way that's sustainable and not destroying such large sections of the forest. Every year, we lose millions of acres of rainforest to unsustainable palm oil practices. So it's really scary because it has such a huge impact so quickly. So one of the things that's really exciting that I wanted to talk to all of you about today is little things that you could do to start changing how your daily behavior is that will impact animals like Taji and animals out in the wild. So one of the great things, we have a fantastic relationship and partnership with our friends down in Colorado Springs at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. So if you guys have not been there, it is a beautiful zoo. Definitely check it out. We love them down there, but they did something amazing, and they put together a palm oil app. So it is an app that you can download on your phone. All you need to do is search Cheyenne Mountain Zoo and it will come up. And what this app does is it actually allows you to look up brands, to look up products, and to determine if they are using sustainable palm oil in their products so that you can make smarter choices when you're buying. Now, when I first did this, it was super overwhelming. There are so many, like if I go to the grocery store, I'm buying a lot of things all at once, and it's really hard. So what we're asking you to do is before you buy anything, just pause for 1 second. Think about one item that you could change that week. One item, one product that you could look at differently, and then act by doing that and picking a more sustainable choice. And then maybe next week, at the next time you go to the grocery store, pick something that is just one more thing that's sustainable. And over time, you're gonna build a behavior, a practice of buying products that are gonna be really healthy and safer for animals like Taji.
Yeah, so we're not saying you have to go out and change your whole buying practice all at once. We know people are brand loyal, product loyal, but if you can just start with one, you could make a huge difference. So I'm going to get to some of the questions that are coming in the comments, but that was a great explanation of what these species and like them need to continue on and how you can make a difference. So we'll definitely be talking more about that. Lisa, we explained they have that extra long tail to help them balance because they're such an arboreal species. Lori's wondering how much they weigh and what their lifespan is in the wild.
Yeah, absolutely. So males, they typically, like Taji, he's 45 pounds. So the males, you're going to see about 45 to 50 pounds. Females are about half that size, so typically around 25 to 30 pounds. In the wild, their life expectancy would be anywhere from about 12 to 15 years. Here in a zoo setting where they have a veterinary staff and a nutrition staff and an animal care staff, they can live upwards to 18 to 20 years of age.
Shannon has been very observant. She said, you said he has a partner, so has he been a dad?
That is a great question. So yes, Taji has a buddy, Lisu, and we can actually see Lisu over here.
Let's go see Lisu. She's in a different area right now, and Taji's following.
Right outside here. So clouded leopards are typically solitary. So Lisu and Taji grew up together, but when they were about 6 or 7 years old, we noticed that they no longer really seemed to enjoy being together full time. So we kind of really listened to their behavior. We decided what's the best way to promote their welfare and their well-being, and we decided that they were telling us they wanted to kind of live separately, like we would expect they would in the wild. So before that though, Taji and Lisu actually had 2 cubs that were born here at Denver Zoo in 2014. Many of you remember their names were Pi and Roo. They were born on Pi Day, which is probably the best holiday in the world. And now even more of a challenge for all of you to find delicious pies that you love that have sustainable palm oil in them. Those 2 cubs have since moved on to other zoos. So right now we just have Lisu and Taji right here. So right now Lisu has the transfer chute, and then she has the whole building to herself, and then tomorrow or overnight she'll go out in the yard and Taji will swap with her. So they don't go together anymore. Just because they weren't really wanting to. So that's kind of what we're doing. But you can see how much smaller Lisu is. So Lisu's only about 25 to 27 pounds right now, which is just a lot smaller than what a male would be.
Oh, she's so pretty. A lot of people are asking what is the explanation, or is there an adaptational reason that they have those beautiful coats?
Absolutely. So yeah, if you notice, the clouded leopards, they get their name because of those coat patterns. So the reason they have that is actually to help them camouflage. So those patterns, when they're really deep in the forest and in the trees, that can make it really hard for their prey or even predators to see them. So it's a really good way for them to blend in. And that's where they get those names, because those spots, they kind of look like clouds.
Yes, they're so pretty. Elizabeth is wondering, what is their kind of natural food source preference?
Yeah, so these animals, the clouded leopards, they're carnivores. So typically they're going to be hunting small deer, gibbons, macaques, other small primates, birds, reptiles. They used to think, scientists used to think that they did most of their hunting in the trees, but recently we've been finding out that they actually probably hunt mostly on ground. So they come out of the trees, hunt, and then they take their food items back up into the trees for safekeeping.
Becky has just joined us, and for anyone who's just joined us, remind us of the ages of Taji and Lisu.
Absolutely. Taji is 8 years old, and then Lisu is 9.
Taji and Lisu, 9. We actually celebrated Lisu's birthday at the very beginning of our shutdown, so if you go on our YouTube page or our Facebook, we have a video talking about her and getting her some of her treats. She actually got a bone that day that she was really enjoying.
Yes, they love bones. So we do give them a ground meat diet, but they also get items like guinea pigs or rabbits, and then they get bones as well. And those bones are really important for their teeth. So just like we would brush our teeth, the bones are really going to help to break down plaque on their teeth and to really keep them healthy and happy.
So Amelia is wondering where they live normally, and I think their habitat location here at the zoo tells you a lot about that. They're in Toyota Elephant Passage, where we have all Asian species living. So where can you find clouded leopards in the wild?
So clouded leopards typically, they're going to be found in Southeast Asia, and they range from countries all the way over like northern India and Nepal, all the way to China, down through Vietnam and Thailand, and into Indonesia. So mostly, like Carly was saying, in these really tropical forested areas, but they are found in temperate forests as well, and even in some like some grass or shrubland, like mangrove type areas. But mostly they like to be where the trees are, because they can really hide. Because it's Endangered Species Week, we're talking about, there are only estimated to be about 10,000 clouded leopards left in the world. And unfortunately, there is no population of clouded leopards that's greater than 1,000. So what's happening when you have habitat destruction, especially for palm oil, what's happening is their connective, the land that connects their environment is getting broken apart. So that's harder and harder for animals to find each other, to breed, to mate, to find food. So that's one of the reasons why keeping really sustainable palm oil practices and not destroying so much of their habitat is going to be really critical for the survival of this species and many Asian species long term.
Abby is 8 and she's wondering, how many times per day do they eat?
Hi, Abby. That is a great question. So Taji and Lisu, they get fed, or Taji gets fed 2 times a day. Lisu gets fed actually 6 times a day. She gets smaller meals. So just like people, Lisu actually has a food allergy. So we found out that she was allergic to certain types of food. So she actually gets venison, which is really, really a unique type of food for animals here at the zoo. And she gets smaller meals because that seems to do better for her stomach. So that is an awesome question. So usually 2 is about average, but Lisu gets a couple more just so that we can keep her healthy.
Lisu's like me. It's like breakfast, second breakfast,
She likes
first
to
lunch.
snack all day.
I do too. Jenny says, we love the Denver Zoo so much. We had a question for Matt specifically. What's your favorite part about working with clouded leopards?
That is a fun question. So I think my favorite part is that clouded leopards, they take a lot of work to learn about their behavior. They're very shy, secretive animals that are very complex in how they think and feel about their environment. And so I think that's one of my favorite parts. It's one of the frustrating parts too, but it's also one of the really rewarding parts, is that you are constantly challenged to think, how can we change what we're doing? How can we do better to give them the best care that they deserve?
Yeah, Matt's not just a keeper, he's the assistant curator of predators. So you work with our lions,
Yep.
our African wild dogs, our hyenas.
Yep.
You work with a lot of different species. How is working with an Asian species like this different from the ones in Benson's Predator Ridge, which are all African species?
Yeah, absolutely. Two of the biggest differences with like a clouded leopard versus an animal of Predator Ridge is, one, they typically are solitary. So these animals typically live by themselves, whereas all the animals over at Predator Ridge are social carnivores. So that's a very different way to care for them. You have to think differently about how you feed them, about how you move them from habitat to habitat. So that's one of the big challenges. One of the other things that we kind of talked a little bit about why these animals are hard to see sometimes is that they have such a different environment. So Taji and Lisu, they live in really thick forested areas. We like to keep places for them to hide because that's how they feel safe. With a lion, it's a lot easier to see them because, one, there's multiple lions, and also they're out in more of a savanna grassland type habitat. So that's why we really love when people get connected with clouded leopards, and why we encourage them to say, keep looking for them, because we love them so much and we want you to get to experience them. Sometimes it just takes a little bit more time to find them, but it's that much more rewarding when you do.
It's a real practice in patience.
Yeah, exactly.
Clara's 7. She wants to know, how do the leopards play or have fun? Which I think is a great companion question to someone who asked, what is their favorite enrichment item?
Absolutely. Hi, Clara. The great question. So Taji, there's a couple of things. When they're young cubs, they are super playful. They love to play in water. So they have a pool. Taji and Lisu don't really use it anymore, but when they were babies, they loved to use it. Some of their favorite enrichment items are food. So food items, whether we hide it or display it differently or put it up high so they have to climb to get it. They also really love to shred and tear things. So that's something that's really fun for them to do, is to shred, to tear things that they can rip apart with their claws and their teeth. In the past, they've gotten sometimes produce that they can use, like pumpkins that they can really shred up and really have fun with. So that's one of the biggest things that they really love to do. They definitely, just like people, they tend to be a lot more playful when they're young, and then when they get older, they spend a little bit more time snoozing throughout the day.
Mark Rinker says hello. He's one of our volunteers. So this other treat that we put in was a little bloodsicle. Doesn't look like Taji's into it today. Is he normally into them?
Sometimes he is. So basically, it's just kind of like some blood mixed with water that we froze that they can kind of lick and eat over time. And obviously today it was not a hit. And that's part of really the fun part about being an animal caregiver, is that animals are just like people. Some days they like things and sometimes they don't. And we are constantly trying to figure out what we can do to really change up their world and to make things feel safe but also interesting.
Yeah, I think caregivers of toddlers and kids can totally relate to the
Yeah.
They liked it yesterday, why won't they eat it today?
Absolutely.
Nancy's wondering if, like other cats, they like playing in boxes.
Yeah, yes, they do. I think it's typically like any toy that you have, if you have a box there, that's typically where they're gonna go. So yeah, we've definitely seen the cats over the years really enjoy sleeping in boxes and squeezing into those boxes. It's always fun. It's always such a funny toy that we sometimes forget that they really enjoy it.
Marissa wants to know how long a cub will stay with its parents.
That is a great question. So typically cubs will stay with their parents anywhere from about 10 months to up to 2 years. So I think it kind of depends on the cubs. It depends on how mom is doing and if she is enjoying their presence or not. But they typically can leave anywhere from about 10 months up to that 24-month range.
And Luke is wondering if they have any predators.
Yes, Luke. So they do have some natural predators. They share habitat with larger leopards and also with tigers. So typically tigers and leopards are not going to be hunting them for food, but they do sometimes come into encounter with each other, and they sometimes might not survive that encounter. So tigers are definitely something they try to avoid. Leopards, large leopards are something they try to avoid. Humans also, unfortunately, are probably their biggest predator. So that's kind of going back to that two things that really impact them with that illegal poaching and the palm oil and habitat loss. Those are the two big things that really impact these animals.
Hi, Lori. You're looking at Taji on the right. He's 8, and Lisu is on the left. She's 9. Let's go. I think she's making a cool vocalization.
Yeah,
we can get a little closer because a lot of people are asking, do they meow? Do they roar?
Yeah,
no, Taji, you had your chance.
Yeah, they actually do not roar. They do not have the bone structure in their neck to be able to do that. They have that vocalization, that meow, that kind of meowing sound. They can growl and hiss if they're scared or upset. They also do a chuffing noise, so similar to like a tiger would do when they're really happy. They do that chuffing noise. It's kind of like a greeting or a hello.
Is Lisa just kind of jealous of the attention
Yeah,
and treats
she's kind of
Taji's
saying,
getting?
hey, come over here and hang out with us.
Jeanette's wondering what's the bird we keep hearing. I don't know, it's just some native birds that are above us in the habitat. Emma's wondering how many babies they can have in their lifetime.
Hi, Emma. They can have anywhere, in a litter, they can have anywhere from 1 to 5. Typically 2 to 3 is normal. And then females can actually give birth to a new set of cubs or a new litter of cubs every year. So if they lived, 15 years, they could have anywhere from 12 to 14 litters throughout their life. That's a great question.
Yeah, I hope everyone's enjoying this really close-up look at Taji, one of our clouded leopards, because normally he's kind of hiding, resting, but because Matt's out here with treats, he's really enjoying some time up close with us. So I hope you all are enjoying this really special look at them. But they are possible to see. I know some people say, oh, I've never seen them.
Yeah, actually, what I think would be cool is that we can actually point out some of their hiding spots.
Let's do that.
So when we open back up, we cannot wait to see you all again. But right here, this log, this big hollow log is a big one for both of them. Over in the front tree, there's actually a tiny box up near the window, and Taji loves to sleep in that, but he can actually be really hidden in that. So that's another place that they might be sleeping. And then also sometimes in the back bamboo, you'll kind of look and just kind of watch, because sometimes it takes just watching and you'll see a slight movement, and it might be their head or their eyes moving, and that will clue you into where they're at.
Yeah, when we came over here today, Taji was right in that hollowed out log right there. So look out for the long tail, look for some twitchy movements, and you might have seen yourself a clouded leopard. Terry's wondering what they do for kind of stimulation, that kind of mental enrichment.
Absolutely. So stimulation is really, really important for not only for clouded leopards, but for any of our animals at the zoo. So we have really robust training, nutrition, veterinary programs. So in like Taji's normal day, we are looking at different ways we can present his food to him. We do training sessions with him. So the training sessions are kind of like going to school. They're having to learn new behaviors. They're having to engage in different ways. And that's ways that they're using their head. But it also helps us to make sure that we're training them to take care of them. So we might be able to train. So just like you guys might give rabies vaccinations to your pets at home, Taji gets them as well. And instead of making it really scary, we can actually train him to allow us to do it voluntarily. So he lines up against the mesh, and we can give him an injection, and then he gets a big jackpot of food for doing that. So that's another way that we keep him engaged. Some of the other things that we do are we constantly are trying to change their environment. So changing up where they have access to, changing up who's on exhibit this day or that day, and just trying to provide new things for them every single day to get to explore and to get to investigate. We also want to make sure that we give them time to do their own thing. Sometimes they just want to be on their own and be exploring things and kind of relaxing. So it's kind of a really fine balance for their wellness of deciding when do we step in and when do we step out in terms of their care.
Deb says, thank you for pointing out their favorite hiding spots. So I hope you can kind of utilize some of that insider info when you come back, Deb, because we can't wait for you all to come back. I have a question. Do their tails kind of puff up like a domestic cats would when they're angry.
Yeah, absolutely. They do. So their tails, if they're nervous or scared or feeling uncomfortable, their tails will kind of poof up just like a cat at home would.
Let's see. Hi, Leslie. We don't really encourage donation of toys, but if you donate to the zoo, it allows us to purchase those specialized enrichment items that are the appropriate size and sturdiness for our animals. Like hyenas can tear through plastic, so they need like steel to engage with. Olin's wondering why they hide so much.
So, good question, Olin. I think what it is I think that they live in areas where they are bigger predators than them. So they live in areas where there are, like we talked about, other big leopards or tigers. And so it is advantageous for them, and they are going to more likely survive if they stay really tiny and hide out. So that's kind of one of the things is they're a small cat, and they know what they're capable of. So they want to make sure that they stay safe and hidden. It's also really important when they're trying to catch their food. So a gibbon or a macaque, they don't really want to get eaten. So they're going to do everything they can to get away from Taji in the wild. So when a clouded leopard can stay really small and secretive and hidden, it's going to be really helpful for them when they're trying to catch their next meal.
And there goes Taji kind of making himself a little hidden. So I'm going to do my last call for questions. That's normally when we get the most. So this is your last chance. I'll answer them as they come in, and then we'll wrap up. But thank you to everyone who has been tuning in this Endangered Species Week. I hope you have learned some really valuable techniques and tools that you can do, because it's on all of us to help conserve and preserve these species. And just the simple act of downloading that palm oil app and making a few small changes in your shopping habits can have a huge impact. So just consider that, and consider everything we've told you this week about what makes an appropriate pet, how you can conserve species and be responsible, because we love them as much as you do, and we want them to be around for generations. So let's see. Claire's wondering how they defend themselves.
So they typically will use, if they are in a situation, they have some really sharp and strong claws that they could use to defend themselves, and they're also going to use those really strong teeth. Typically, one of the things that they would do first is they're going to try to get away. They're going to try to get up high, somewhere up in the trees where they are safe. But if they're put into a situation where they're kind of stuck, then they're definitely going to use those claws and those teeth to kind of defend themselves.
Yes. Oh, a Colorado native watching from Costa Rica. Zach wants to know if their tongues are rough like a house cat's.
Yeah, yep, Zach, you are absolutely right. Very similar to a house cat, just a lot bigger, so a lot rougher.
Really that sandpapery feel. All right, let's see. Sally says, thank you to the keepers, to Matt for being so informative and engaging. Eric's wondering if the two cats, Lisu and Taji, engage anymore, or are they completely separated?
So what Taji and Lisu right now, they can be mesh to mesh. So they like to go up and greet each other and rub cheeks together and see each other, but they don't actually share the same space right now. And that's not to say that we wouldn't do it again in the future, but clouded leopards typically are pretty solitary, and they would really only come together for breeding situations. So we're not anticipating that they'll be in that situation anytime soon. So for now, they're kind of just having their own spaces, but they always constantly get to see each other and go up and interact and chuff at each other when they want to.
Terry's asking about snow leopards, but these are clouded leopards, so I'm just going to amend her question. Is there a problem with clouded leopards being sold on the black market to private owners? They are smaller, so is there a problem with kind of the attempt of domestication and ownership of these animals? Yes,
that is definitely something that can happen with them, is people kind of breeding them or taking them from the wild as pets. I think more often than not, they don't survive alive. They typically are being hunted for their coat or their different parts of their body, like their bones, but that is something that could happen, and they definitely do not make great pets. They see everything as trees, and like we talked about, they defend themselves with those sharp claws and those sharp teeth, so definitely not something that would be fun to have in your home.
Are those claws also really helpful to allow them to climb?
Yeah, those claws are super important for when they're climbing and moving through the trees and able to catch their food. They're kind of like squirrels. They have a really unique back set of their back ankles can actually rotate, so they can climb down a tree their head first. So they have a really unique ability to be able to navigate trees really well, thanks to those big paws and those really sharp claws.
I bet they look a lot more coordinated going up these than our lions do on the pole
they,
feeder sometimes.
They do, yeah. They are actually meant to do that.
Yes, the pole feeding is quite fun for us to watch. All right, everyone. Everyone is thanking Matt. Becky says big thanks to Matt. He's been so helpful and informative and teaching us about clouded leopards and what we can all do to help ensure that this species continues for generation. Marcel is wondering if they have retractable claws.
They do, yeah. So they can pull their claws back in just like a house cat can.
All right, that was a great last question. We appreciate everyone. It is starting to drizzle here, so we want to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us for a really important week highlighting our endangered species and what you can do to help. We will see you all on Monday.